All right, today we're going to talk about fertilizer, and especially for fertilizer that you'll buy for your lawn. Um, I'm going to go over what these numbers mean. These are numbers that you're going to find on any bag of fertilizer in the United States. They're required by law to have these numbers on the bag, and I'll tell you what they mean. We're going to go over how to use math to calculate how much you need to use to uh, distribute a desired amount onto your lawn, and then we'll go over a few practice examples together to figure out how much product you need to use to get the desired amount of nutrients on your grass or in your flower beds or whatever you might be using it for. So first, um, these numbers here are all percentages of different types of nutrients that are going to be in that fertilizer. So this is, I took these numbers from a complete bag of fertilizer so that you find that at a store. Any kind of store is going to have something like this. If you go to Home Depot, they'll be selling bags like this, where it's got nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So these numbers mean that every time. N, P, K. So that means in this bag of fertilizer, it's a complete bag, and usually they're going to sell this to homeowners because it's got all the nutrients your lawn might need. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with soil testing and stuff in another video. But yeah, it's going to be nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. That means you're going to have 23% nitrogen in this bag, 3% phosphorus, and 8% potassium. Which means we're going to do some quick math. In this bag here, if you had a 100-pound bag, just to be simple with the math of whatever this is, if you had 100 pounds of this, then that means you'll have 23 pounds of nitrogen. You'd have 3 pounds of phosphorus, and you'd have 8 pounds of potassium. The other two numbers I put down here, these are some of the more common fertilizers you'll see that are used by big companies, landscaping companies, or golf courses. They're going to use lots of just straight nitrogen or ammonium sulfate. So that this here, sometimes a bag will have another number in parentheses. For example, ammonium sulfate has an extra number. That is the percentage of sulfur in that bag of fertilizer. So you've got 21% nitrogen, 24% sulfur. Usually when you calculate your rates and how much you're going to be putting down, you're going to be basing it off of nitrogen. You'll almost never use any other way to calculate it because nitrogen is the most common, it's the most needed by your plants, and so that's why you're always going to be basing it off of nitrogen. And rates for nitrogen, you could be like, common ones are like 1 pound per 1,000 square feet. Another common one is 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Do a quick practice problem to calculate, like let's say you have a 50-pound bag of urea, or even commonly at the store you might buy them in 25-pound bags, but we'll do 50 pounds. 50-pound bag of urea. How much nitrogen, how many pounds of nitrogen do you have in this 50 pounds of urea? If you want, you can pause the video and go through it on your own, but I'll just really quickly go over how to do this. You're going to take that 50 pounds, you're going to multiply it by 0.46. Which, let me get my calculator out. That gives you 23 pounds of nitrogen. So that's going to be a pretty common thing. Sometimes you won't get 50-pound bags. I think lots of times you'll probably be buying it in like a 25-pound bag. So you got a 25-pound bag, and you're going to calculate how much nitrogen and how much sulfur you have in it. So you do 25 pounds, 25 times by 0.21, and then you'll do 25 times by 0.24. So that's a pretty common weight of a bag. You're going to do 25 times by 0.21. That gives you 5.25 pounds of nitrogen. And then if you do 25 times by 0.24, you get 6 pounds of sulfur. So in that bag, a 25-pound bag of ammonium sulfate, you put the whole thing on your lawn, you're putting down 5.25 pounds of nitrogen and 6 pounds of sulfur. I'm going to go over more in future videos about soil testing and nutrients and what you actually need in your lawn. This video is just explaining how the bags work, what the numbers mean, and how to kind of calculate what you're putting down. So, yeah, that's how I do it. If you have a 25-pound bag that you're going to use on your whole lawn, you can calculate it that way. Multiply it by the percentage that's on the bag. All right, we're switching segments a little bit now. I'm going to go over to calculating rates. Like, let's say you want to put 1 pound of nitrogen down for every 1,000 square feet, or you want to put 3 pounds of nitrogen down per 1,000 square feet. Let's say you have a yard that is 4,000 square feet, and you're doing 3 pounds of nitrogen. You're going to figure out how much total product you need to get this 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet. So we'll do that math right now. If you want, you can try and pause it and figure it out on your own, but I'll go over it with you right now. So first, you're going to take 4,000. You're going to divide it by 1,000 because you're doing per 1,000 square feet. That gives you 4. So you're going to have 4,000 square feet is what it is. You're going to multiply that by the 3 pounds that you're going for, which is going to give you 12 total pounds of nitrogen. That's your goal. You're trying to get 12 pounds of nitrogen for your entire 4,000 square foot yard. So how do we get from here to here and figure out the right number of total pounds of urea that we need? What you're going to do is you're going to take this 12 pounds here, move it down here, 12 pounds of nitrogen. You're going to divide it by the percentage. So this, in this case, is 0.46. I'm going to need my calculator for this one, but 12 pounds divided by 0.46 means you're going to need about 26 pounds of urea for your entire yard that is 4,000 square feet. And then you can do a quick, just like check and see if that makes sense. I always like to see if it makes sense. So we have, we need 12 pounds of nitrogen, and the percentage of the nitrogen in the bag is just a little less than 50%. So if you were to double 12 pounds, it's about 24 pounds, and we need a little bit more than that. We end up at 26. That checks out. That's the right number. That's how much you want to put down on your yard. All right, we're going to go over another example. Also, sorry for the sound quality. I'm experimenting with a few different microphone setups, and if it's all wonky and all over the place, I apologize. Hopefully I'll get that dialed in by the next video. All right, we're going to do another example. Let's say our goal is 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, and you're going to be using this bag here of the stuff from the store. So we're using that. We're trying to go for 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, and your yard is 3,500 pounds. 3,500 square feet. Really quick, if you want to take the opportunity, pause, do it on your own. Otherwise, we're going to get going on it. So like I said with this last example, you're going to take the 3,500 feet squared. You're going to divide it by 1,000 to get the 1,000 square feet rate that you need. That's going to give you 3.5. Now you're going to use this 3.5 total pounds of nitrogen for your whole yard. That's you want 3.5 total pounds of nitrogen for the whole 3,500 feet squared. You're going to take this number, 3.5 total pounds of nitrogen that you want to put on the total yard, that's 3,500 square feet, and you're going to divide it by the percentage of nitrogen in the bag. So that is 0.23. That's going to give you, it's going to give you 15.2. So basically 15 pounds of product. You're going to want 15 pounds of product for this yard to get your desired rate of 1 pound per 1,000 square feet. Now, if you have 15 pounds of product, now that we have this, we can use that, come over here, 15 pounds, and you can multiply it by these other percentages to figure out just how much you're putting down of phosphorus and potassium. So 15 times by 0.03. You're getting almost a half pound of phosphorus. You're getting 0.45 pounds of phosphorus for the whole yard. So you do the same thing, you take 15 pounds and you multiply it by 8%, 0.08. That will give you 1.2 of potassium. You're putting down 1.2 pounds of potassium over the entire yard. You don't always need to do that. You can if you want, just to check how much of the other nutrients you're getting. But mostly you're going to focus on nitrogen. Nitrogen is the main nutrient you're ever going to focus on. And anytime you do calculations, you're going to be using the nitrogen to calculate how much product you need. Because nitrogen is what the plant needs most. It's what is most lacking in the urban lawns and urban soils. So that's going to be really important to make sure that you're using nitrogen when you're doing your calculations. Hopefully this helps. This is pretty simple once you kind of get the hang of it. It's pretty easy to recognize the patterns that you need to do to figure out the rates and to calculate the total number of pounds you need. So just practice this. Hopefully it helps though to go over it a few extra times. That's pretty much it. That's all for now.